Hello all and welcome back to CWU Live. We are so excited to be focusing on telecoms and financial services in today's episode. And as such, later on, we're going to be joined in the studio by three brilliant guests. Before that though, we are going to cover the Royal Mail takeover. The latest is that Dave Ward and Martin Walsh met with Daniel Kretinsky on Tuesday. Here's an update from Dave on how that went.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully you've seen our statement yesterday that was sent out to our members, our branches and our representatives on the latest situation with the takeover bid. And I want to give you an update today on what happened at the meeting and how we intend to take this forward. It's probably worth reminding us all of the fact that our actual policy is that we don't believe that this is the right thing for Royal Mail, a Czech billionaire owning Royal Mail in its entirety doesn't seem to us to be right. But equally, we have very strong views, which I'm sure all of you will understand who've experienced what's happened in Royal Mail, that we cannot support the current board. We do not believe the current board have a vision for the future of Royal Mail that's in the interests of the workers. And we're calling for a new model where the workers actually have a bigger stake in the future of the business. And we're talking not just to Mr. Kretinsky's team and himself at some point in the near future, but also to the Labour Party as well about what we can do to turn Royal Mail around, really. So the meeting itself was constructive. It was a useful meeting. We went there with a wide-ranging agenda, setting out our major concerns about what we see as the problems in Royal Mail. What we see as the problems with the assurances that are part of this deal, the contractual obligations. But we also set out our views on what we think needs to happen in the future to make Royal Mail successful. We listened to them. They were quite extensive in setting out all of their plans for the future. And to be fair, they listened to us. We certainly felt that was the case. I do want to focus a little bit on this new model. We're serious about this. We believe that there's only, one way that Royal Mail's really going to be successful, and that is the workers have to be on board, and therefore having a stake in ownership in the future of the business is really important. I think I would go as far to say as well, we have to be understanding of the circumstances that are surrounding Royal Mail. And what I mean by that is that whoever owns the company, we've got to be realistic about what's likely to happen, and that to be successful, there's three things that have got to take place. One, Royal Mail has to grow its revenue. It can't just rely now on letters. We do need to find new products, new services that basically grow the revenue of the company. To do that, Royal Mail is going to need investment, and to make that all work, this is the role that the workers have to play. They have to be on board with it. So, we're going to continue to push those points. And where we ended up is that we're going to go back. We're going to present a more sort of wider proposal on what that might look like in the future. And we're going to continue to push for stronger guarantees for the workforce. We don't believe, and we made that clear yesterday, that the guarantees that the company and Mr. Kretinsky have negotiated, the so-called contractual obligations, we don't think they're good enough. We don't think they're long enough. And we made that very clear yesterday. So let's see where that takes us. There'll be further meetings. Mr. Kretinsky himself will be directly involved in a subsequent meeting. We expect that to take place fairly soon. And we also want to keep our branches fully updated. So we'll be holding a briefing, possibly in the next week or so, with our branches to update them on where we are, what we're thinking, and how we're trying to move this forward. And we'll be taking you through some of our thinking in a more detailed way on one of our shows in the near future about what we see as a successful future for Royal Mail and your role in that. So we want you to keep supporting where we are at the moment. Our reps will be out there updating you as well based on the statement. And we want to listen to your views on some of this, but we have to make sure that we are pushing your voice, and we're going to do that every opportunity. We're doing it in the media. We're also doing it with the political parties, and we'll be talking to Labour over the coming days about what we think they need to do to secure the future of Royal Mail.
Thanks for that, Dave. We'll have more on that as we get it. We also held a big Zoom event in Scotland this week on the network changes for postal workers there. One of the main things discussed was the use of planes, specifically Royal Mail's decisions to cut their use in Scotland and the union's fight against that choice. Transporting mail across the country with 37 centres dotted all over, high stem times and long delivery spans is difficult enough. But taking away the use of planes may actually make it even harder. For more on how the union has been trying to negotiate a more pragmatic approach to limit Scotland below 60 minutes like everyone else, we caught up with Martin Walsh and asked him how it's going.
What we've been trying to negotiate is a more pragmatic approach which could limit Scotland below 60 minutes like everyone else. We were making some progress, and then the general election was called, which meant Royal Mail were, obviously very cautious around moving issues further ahead of that election. And the reasons being is what you've got is seasonal variations which kick in the 17th of June, so you've already got earlier starts and sort of less, 24 minutes less per day, and you've got all the election material to deliver, and their concern was moving start times further would obviously have a massive impact on the delivery of election material. So what we've achieved and what we explained to the call is in Scotland, where units are obviously up to 90 minutes, with the introduction of seasonal variations for 11 weeks from the 17th of June, and also if they take their 10-minute meal relief between wave 1 and wave 2, the maximum anyone will move is 65 minutes. And there's quite a lot of units now below 60 minutes. And what we've also agreed with the company is to actually do a PIR, post-implementation review, where we can review everything 6 weeks after the 17th of June. And that means if Mondays and Saturdays doesn't need later start times, then we can adjust them. If the 90 minutes processing window isn't needed, we can adjust everyone's start times. We think that's the best solution which we can get at this moment in time. So we've explained that to all the reps on Friday in Scotland, and yesterday I think we had over 300 members on the call, and we explained that to all the members. So we want to keep people updated. This is a very, very difficult situation. Royal Mail knew as soon as they served notice on planes, it would move start times everywhere. And clearly in Scotland, it's a massive challenge. But again, the union, by sticking together, we've capped that change subject to the PIR at 65 minutes. And we're going to be working hard to mitigate it further. So keep faith in your local union, keep your faith in the national union and the division, and we will update you further as we move on.
Thanks for that, Martin. And now, welcoming to the show, Karen Rose, our Deputy Gensec for TFS, Fiona Curtis, our National Officer for Openreach members, and National Executive Member and host of our new monthly industrial podcast for TFS members, Andy Mercer. Firstly, I'm going to come to you, Andy. This is a bit of a pilot. From next month, you'll be producing on your own, but with our support, don't worry about it, monthly audio podcast for our TFS members. So can you tell me what it is that you're hoping to achieve with these podcasts and what it's all about, really?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I will need the support even from next month. But I do think we need to look at new ways of engaging with our members. We've seen so many members engaging with our new digital platforms, and it's about time the telecoms and financial services constituency within the union really embrace the new technology and really raise the bar on engagement with our members across the whole of the constituency.
I see. All right, looking forward to that. Well, Andy, I'm going to give the reins over to you to ask questions to Fiona and Karen. Take it away.
Thanks, Omar. For our first show, we felt it was important to speak with our Deputy General Secretary, Karen Rose. Welcome, Karen. And we also have with us our National Officer, currently representing members working in Openreach Northern Ireland, Manx Telecom and Digital Realty, Fiona Curtis. Welcome, Fiona. Karen, I'll come to you first. Let's talk about the direction of the union after Andy Kerr decided to step down. You've been elected and you've been in post for a few weeks now, and I'm sure it's been really busy. Would you like to tell us how you found the first few weeks, Karen?
So, like you say, Andy, they've been busy, that's for sure, because obviously we came back after we'd been to our annual conference. There was, the conference motions that we had to kind of look at and consider how we were going to implement them and how we were going to put those into action. There's the ongoing issues, the stuff that we had business as usual, and also, doing a new job for the first time. There's kind of getting used to actually changing roles. So from the chair of the constituency and the president into being a deputy general secretary is quite a different role, actually. And so it's been busy, it's been different, and hopefully I'm getting into it.
Fiona, what does the future look like in Openreach with so many voluntary paid leaver schemes and organisational changes?
Thanks, Andy. I think it's been quite an unsettling time for individuals right across Openreach. There has been so many voluntary paid leaver schemes. There's also been the collective consultations. But we really are hoping that this is going to be, we're coming into a period now where the voluntary paid leaver schemes are going to settle. We're hoping now that the Openreach are at the point of where they've done most of their organisational changes, where they've right-sized the business now for going forward. We have worked closely with the business, even recently in service delivery UK operations. We've worked with them to ensure that in the months ahead that the ratio between team members, patch leads, managers, that it's doable, that we have had existing agreements in place from the creation of the patch lead role of how many team members there are to patch leads. So it is vitally important that we maintain that and that we understand what that work level is actually going to be in your patches and in the regions. This is then also, if you take that even into now what's happening across into chief engineers and fibre network delivery, Openreach are losing a managing director, and it's going the majority of it's going under one managing director, but then it is going into other parts of Openreach too. But again, this is where we've been working closely with Openreach to understand what that means. At the minute, there's no impact to team members. That has been made really, really clear by the business, has been made really clear to us. We know, though, that potentially down the line in the future, this could mean possible change. And you have raised this with us. You've raised this with your branches, with your reps, with your regional coordinators, and they have brought this up to our attention as well. But we have asked the business again to work with us on any of their plans that they're putting in place. So we want to make sure that we are fully engaged and that we are representing you, and that we have any questions that you raise to us, we represent that to Openreach.
Thank you, Fiona. This question is for you both. Openreach have recently opened redundancy consultation on a number of occasions. Can you explain what support is put in place when Openreach make those decisions, and what our response as a union is? Karen, I'll come to you first, and then Fiona, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Look, we would rather the company not move into a redundancy situation at all. And certainly on occasions when they've said they move into that redundancy consultation, we have pushed back and said that actually we think that there's better ways of dealing with it. First of all, voluntary, because there is still a lot of people who would sign up to voluntary leavers, and so we would prefer that they didn't do it. Unfortunately, on some occasions, they've not agreed to kind of do that voluntary approach. And that makes it really difficult because sometimes that means it's putting people, individuals, our members, the workers out there through unnecessary stress and anxiety really about the future of their job. So it is definitely something we always push back against. It's always something that we try to avoid, or we try to get the company to avoid. And when the unfortunate happens and they insist on going ahead with those redundancy consultations, what we then do is we make sure that we're there to support the individuals. We make sure the branches are there to support the individuals, that we put the guidance in place, that we provide them with all the information that they need in order to support them through that process. But the reality is that we would rather nobody had to go through that process, because it's not pleasant. It's really stressful. It's an anxious time. And the reality is that some of our members have lost their jobs, and we would far prefer if that had never happened. But it's like I said, it's one of those things that it doesn't matter how many objections we put in place. Unfortunately, in a situation where the company is reducing resource, then they are choosing to make that move into redundancy.
Thank you, Karen. Fiona, anything you'd like to add?
I think Karen's covered most of the points, in fairness. It's just, across Openreach, it has impacted quite a few different areas across Openreach, really. It's affected our frames engineers, it's affected coaches, it's affected, there's been multiple areas across desk. And this is where it's so important that our members come to our branches and speak to our branches when this happens. Especially, just one example is even in our role cease scenario, or they believe the work volumes have reduced, that if our members believe that it's different to what they're saying, which is why in those scenarios we've asked our branches to get in contact with those members to understand, is it the case of what the company have put forward. But this is where, if our members can provide the evidence against it, we can then put that in our counter proposals back to the company and try to fight against some of these redundancy scenarios.
Thank you for that, Karen, Fiona. And I suppose it is absolutely crucial our members understand and know that they've got the backing of the union, of the CW at every step of the way throughout that process. Mm-hmm. CDR has been a topic which has appeared in on our conference agenda, and the CW executive and conference supported a call to radically change CDR and its use in service delivery. Can you explain, first of all, Fiona, what CDR is and the proposal from conference on how CDR should be changed?
Yeah, so CDR is customer delivery rate, and it's used across service delivery. It's used across service delivery UK operations and service delivery fibre to the premises. We agreed with the company on the use of the customer delivery rate because it's about that coaching and support. It's that wraparound. It's about, if an individual feels as though it's about having that conversation with your patch leads, building up that relationship, that you feel as though that you can go to those individuals, you can speak to your patch lead, your patch manager, you can ask for that coaching and support, you can highlight the areas where you feel as though you could make some improvements, or maybe you need some training. And it's about the patch leads and the patch manager understanding you as an individual. So that's where that wraparound support is meant to be for this customer delivery rate. It's also, we are aware of, there was issues in certain different areas and different patches, and we have made sure that and we've made it clear to our branches and to our reps that if an issue does come up, that to flag it up to us straight away, that we then can speak to the company, and the company are in agreement as well in the back of it, that they will then deal with it, and they will make sure that it's not about performance. That conversation shouldn't be coming into it, and it should be about that coaching and support. In fairness to the company, whenever we do raise it, the issues are dealt with. So I would encourage, if members are finding any issues with the customer delivery rate, to please speak with your local CW rep to flag that up, so we can then look into it with the company to see what is going on and what's happening. The motion for conference was about moving it from an individual-based metric to a team-based metric. And of course, that's something that we would always support as a CW. It's supportive as a team, and it doesn't target individuals. I'm not saying that this is a target for individuals, and it's not about targets, but it just makes it's better whenever something is done as a team. But it's still about that coaching and support, and that's where we will be approaching the company then to try and move it towards a team-based metric.
Again, thank you, Fiona. I'll start with Karen here, but maybe Fiona will want to come in. The STE role, Specialist Field Technician, which appears to be merging 3 highly skilled roles into one multi-skilled role. What does that mean for members, and what is the union's position on this, Karen?
So I guess the thing about this senior engineering role that's merging other roles basically is that under the current grading evaluation system that we've got agreed with the company, is it's not the number of skills that you're employed doing. So it doesn't matter whether you merge in 3 different roles, basically. It's the value of the skill that counts. So if the skill is the same level that would be attributed to the same grade, then basically the merging of those skills into one role is something that can be done under the current grading evaluation system. And we have always placed quite a great importance on making sure that the skills are the thing that's valued, not just the number of skills that they employ, because that's quite important in determining the pay and the rate of pay. So this is a difficult one for us, because actually the company doing that is perfectly acceptable within the agreements that we've got, but we know that some of the members are not particularly very happy about it. But ultimately what I would say is, if a role is a TM3 role and you're going to merge another TM3 role and another TM3 role and it all becomes one role, is still only a TM3 role. And it is something that the company can do, and it is something that we're going to have to work through with them, because we know there's an amount of opposition, but actually that is the way the grading evaluation system works, and we're going to have to look into why members are so concerned about it.
Thank you, Karen. Some useful insight there. Fiona, is there anything you'd like to add on that piece?
Yeah, I think it's really vitally important for especially people involved within, because it involves the private PTOs, the NGAs, CTEs, the private services engineers. It's quite a vast amount of different roles and stuff that's involved actually in this new role that the company have developed as an STE. But with that, we know that members have a lot of questions and queries of how this is actually going to work and operate now going forward. This is what now we were in opposition to what the company were doing and how they were actually doing it and how they went about it. We are back around the table, we are talking with the company, we are talking with Openreach, and we are trying to find an agreed way forward on this. It is really important, and what we believe is really important is around, the company went out last week with comms to say around training and consolidation, and that's one of the things that is key to us, is around the training and consolidation and what that could possibly look like. That's something that we are looking at now with the company to see what that actually means. It's also important to us as well, because on the back of that, it then leads to coming to an agreed job description. And it ties into what Karen is saying, that if we have an agreed job description and agreed evaluation pack, we can go through that evaluation exercise and we can see then, does the skills and does what the company are looking for in this role marry up to what that evaluation process actually says. So that is what is vitally important, I think, in this process. And that's what we're trying to go through at the moment. It is tedious and it is taking us a bit of time, but we want to make sure that we get the right answer for our members, and we want to work through the additional questions that our members have.
Thank you both. Karen, recent campaigns have been successful, such as our opposition to image-facing dash cameras. Can you explain the history of that campaign and how it was resolved?
Well, and I tell you, this is a really, really good example of where the members, the workers themselves, the people who something is going to impact, get involved in a campaign. And this is a classic example, actually, where the company have wanted to introduce something which our members, those CWU members that are out there as workers in the workplace, have had a huge opposition to it. And of course, with the dash cams, what the main opposition was to the inward facing dash cams, because it was so intrusive, and I think we've mentioned that before on a previous show. But what was good, and it has highlighted how we win successful campaigns, is when members are engaged, participate, and actually they are part of the fight and the arguments against whatever it is the company is wanting to impose, really. So it was a classic example of where workers united can actually defeat something that is coming towards them. That said, I'm not absolutely convinced that the whole issue has gone away, right? And we'll have to watch this space, I think, because I don't necessarily think that the company have completely dismissed the idea of dash cams, but it was those inward-facing dash cams that seemed to be the main opposition, and I think we're going to have to see where we go in the future.
Yes, I have a sneaky feeling you may well be right that they haven't gone away forever. But Fiona, how can we build on campaigns such as the Dashcams campaign to help build the union? And how does empowering members help to build the union's strength in the workplace?
I think it ties in closely to what you were saying, Karen. It's so important that it's not just CW fighting for our members, that our members get involved in that fight, that our members show their strength of feeling for something, that if they're unhappy with something, that they know that we're behind them, that we're there representing them to the company, but also that they're making those representations. And that's why that dashcam was absolutely fantastic, because even the company's own workplace was absolutely inundated with people being so unhappy of the thought of the company going and installing inward-facing dashcams. But this is where that helps us then in those negotiations. And there's other examples where we've had the members speaking to their managers, raising it up to their senior managers, and that backs us up. Yes, it's brilliant that members come to us and say what's going on and what's happening, but this is where I'd ask you to work with your local branches, to actually engage with your branches, mobilise, speak. At least then, whenever you're in a group, you've got stronger strength. It's not just you as an individual trying to fight for what you believe should be changing. You've got the group behind you, you've got the CW behind you, and it's so important then that the more members we have, then the more strength that we have, and then the more representative we are to the company as well. And the company then are really aware that whenever we go to them and we speak to them, that we are representing you, that we are there on behalf of you, that you speak to our branches speak to us. We are equipped with that information to speak to the company then on your behalf.
Thank you, Fiona. A really comprehensive answer there. Karen, is there anything you'd like to add?
When Fiona said then, it is really important that feedback that we get, right? It is really important that the people who are at the coalface, the people who are out there doing the job, that they don't just assume that the people like us who are representing them know what's going on. So it is actually about the two-way street as well. It is not just them getting involved in the campaign, it's about them alerting their local branches and their reps to the things that are happening in their workplace. And really, really important is why we need people who are out there in the teams working to get involved, even if they're only going to be somebody that they can contact and somebody who's the eyes and ears really of the CW in the workplace. We need more of those people to come forward, because that's really key to winning campaigns.
Thank you, Karen. Fiona, there's been a recent announcement across service delivery on the reduction of Saturdays. How were the CW involved, and what does it actually mean for our members?
This actually should be hopefully a good news story, especially across service delivery for our members. Openreach came to us to say, well, actually it was a mixture between Openreach and ourselves, especially on the feedback that came from you, the members, which leads on from your questions that you just asked around members feeding back about the work volumes that they were having on Saturdays. So between that and then us approaching the company, we do have agreements in place that are quite complex, and there's a Saturday modeler which has inputs, outputs, but that's agreed with Service Delivery UK operations. And by looking at that, then you're able to see what level of Saturdays is actually required. So with other agreements that we've got in place, that then we had that conversation then nationally and what that could potentially look like nationally. That then went down to our regions and branches to have that discussion with the local managers and the regional directors. That was then agreed by the regional directors and by our CW regional coordinators that Saturdays across the piece and across the UK could reduce from the 12 Saturdays down to 10 across Service Delivery UK operations. This should make a massive difference for our members. The fact of reducing by 2 Saturdays within a year down to 10, it is absolutely brilliant. And I used to work in the field myself, and I would have been absolutely delighted if I'd only been able to do 10. But it also is, there also was the comms that went out across service delivery, fibre to the premises. And this is where we are engaging with the company again on that. And we are looking at attendances and what could look like for a possible reduction in Saturdays across there too. So I'd ask everybody to watch this space, please.
Thank you, Fiona. And really good news, and provides a better work-life balance for our members in Openreach Service Delivery UK Ops. Karen, what does strong membership density mean in Openreach, and why is it important across the whole of the telecoms and financial services constituency?
So everything we do really is actually dependent on us having strong membership and as many members in workplaces as we possibly can. So density basically is the percentage of members we have in any one workplace. And it's absolutely key to our strength and to us being able to be successful in winning campaigns. And one of the things that I would say is a really good example of that is the pay dispute we had in BT, actually year before last now, wasn't it? That we had the pay dispute, and that was actually, I think one of the keys to the success of that campaign, where we actually did take industrial action, but then had a successful outcome, and we had a settlement, and it was another pay increase for our members. That was deliverable because of the density that we have in BT. Now, quite clearly, that needs to be duplicated everywhere. We've got really good densities in most of BT right across the piece, but not necessarily the same elsewhere in the TFS. So that's something that we're currently working on, and it is a real priority for us now, because that is key to success. That's key to succeeding and winning the things that the members want to see in terms of their workplaces and in terms of their terms and conditions, all of those things.
Now, at our conference, there were a few motions on the pad impacting our members in BT and Openreach. What debates really stuck with you, and how do you intend on progressing those motions to conference?
So I think there was a lot of debates on that pad, and obviously we spent 2.5 days in our industrial conference debating some of those motions, and to be able to pick single ones out and say, well, they really stand out, because quite clearly all of those motions that come to our conference are policies that our members want us to pursue, and so they're all equally important to each other. But there's definitely one thing that kind of stands out for me in terms of something that would impact right across the whole constituency, and that's, there was a motion on the pads, and I think it was motion number 1 actually, which was about improvements to terms and conditions, and it was specific to BT Openreach, BT Group, and people who work in there. But one of the elements of that was about a shorter working week, and that is something that I definitely think, and the executive agrees, that as a telecoms and financial services department, executive, constituency, whatever you want to call it, that is something that we are going to pursue right across the whole of telecoms and financial services, because that applies equally whether you're in a telecoms company, whether you're in a financial services company, whether you're working in the tech sector. There is no doubt to me that that is something that we can campaign across the whole constituency, and so that all of our members can become involved. It ties in really, really nicely to the Labour Party's flagship policy, which is the New Deal for Workers. It is something which we think goes hand in hand with the advent of new technology like artificial intelligence, because as artificial intelligence is introduced into the workplace, and other technologies, actually it's not all AI, some of that will definitely reduce work volumes, but that is a clear opportunity for workers to benefit from AI and technology in the same way that companies do, but their benefit would be they work less hours with no loss of pay. So it's definitely a campaign that stands out for me from conference that we are going to maximise and work on. It is an education piece. We need to convince our members about what this is, because quite clearly not all of them will understand, because the shorter working week does not mean a loss of pay as far as we're concerned, and that's the argument that we will be pursuing. But it's also a political argument as well, and there's lots of different avenues that we're going to have to go down. So it's not necessarily going to be a quick win, but it is something that we're going to start working on.
It'll certainly be an exciting campaign. Now, Karen, the final question goes to you. Recently, you met with BT CEO. Can you share your first impressions and how you see the relationship going forward between yourself and Alison Kirby?
I had the first introductory meeting, and I think I might have been on the show in between then and now and mentioned it. But since then, I've had the opportunity to meet her again, because she was actually at the BT European Works Council 2 weeks ago. So I met her again. And I think my impression is probably the same as it was when I first met her. I think that the new CEO is somebody that genuinely wants to work with the unions. Mm-hmm. I think her previous employment history has meant that she's worked with in Europe and in Scandinavia, as well as in the UK. And in some of those places, she's been used to working on a board where you have worker representatives on the board. She sees the importance of that. She sees the importance of working with unions. She seems very straightforward and is very clear in the things that she puts across. She comes across as somebody who makes quite straightforward statements and is very honest in the things that she puts across. I don't kid myself that that means that the relationship won't necessarily have its ups and downs. But I do think that my first impressions are that it's got the makings of a working relationship where we can have at least open dialogue and have honest conversations. And I think that's really important, actually, in terms of, being able to achieve things.
Well, thank you. You've both given the members lots of information there. I'm going to hand things back to Omar now. But we hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you all so much for coming on the show. Andy, hope you enjoyed your time as host. You're going to put me out of a job. But I'm looking forward to seeing you on the podcast and listening to it when that comes out. But again, thank you so much, everyone. And that about does it for this show. Thanks for tuning in to CW Live. As we approach 4th of July, we'll be focusing on the election a little bit more, and that starts next week, as we'll have MP Ian Byrne join us on the show, who, as you may or may not know, is a massive supporter of the CWU. We are very excited to bring you that interview. And if there's anything you'd like to ask him, comment your question down below and we'll try and put some of them to him. For now, keep checking our channels, keep sharing the content, and as always, stick with the union.